Welcome back, everyone. This video is going to be a little bit different because we're going to be doing some work on the bike in southwest Utah. So I'm down here working. We brought the bike with us to be able to ride Zion National Park and some other areas. So let's do an update, and then I'm going to show you what we're going to do in this video. So we got the exhaust completely wrapped now. Did some nice little test rides with it. Turns out awesome. But also, you can see right there, we got turn signals and a brake light. And the brake light's kind of dinky, but I'll show you these lights. I'm actually pretty impressed. I got them at Rocky Mountain ATV, and they're pretty snazzy. Is that on? Look at that. So what I'm gonna do is that's right there is actually the brake light. I'm gonna change that to a running light and make the sides brake lights because of how bright they are. See? So other than that, you guys are pretty well up to speed on it. But so what we're going to be doing in this video is the chain conversion. So it's going to be a little bit pieced here and there because I don't have a tripod or anything like that, but you guys get the gist. Take the rear wheel off, take the rear set of your belt cover off, change out the sprockets. You got a small sprocket and a big sprocket for the rear wheel, put the chain on. So let's get to it. Like I said, chain conversions are pretty easy. Just gotta take the rear shock set off, and we'll take the guards off. We'll loosen up, take the rear axle out. It's pretty straightforward. Nothing to it. Big thing is just taking your time. I do want to point out that whenever you pull your axle out, make sure you keep track of your spacers. Again, pulling the axle out is pretty simple. It's got a castle nut on one side. Pull the cotter key out, loosen it up, slide her on out, and it comes right off. Next part's taking the bolts off of the driven pulley. I wanted to do those by hand just to make sure they don't snap. They are typically Loctite. And I will be using Loctite when I go back together with the sprocket. So just making sure I get them loose before I hit them with the gun, and then take them off the rest of the way. Here we go, throwing that sprocket on there, and it's a glorious beauty. I opted for the black powder coat. There's supposedly a machine side on that. I can't remember if I actually would notice that or not, but try and put it on the machine face towards the wheel, and then ideally, I want to say it was recommended for blue Loctite. Well, all I really ever use is red, and I haven't had an issue with it. Some people are gonna disagree with me, but I would rather go too tight than not tight enough, especially on a wheel. Here I'm just running it down with the impact, just getting it close, and then we'll finish it off with a torque wrench. Here we go, torquing the wheel down to 60 foot-pounds for a cast wheel. I want to say the spec's 55 to 65 for cast and 45 to 55 for laced. So I got that zipped down. And then I do want to point out, and maybe we can just appreciate the fact of how I got that bike jacked up there. So I found a couple blocks and some boards on the edge of the parking lot of the hotel and just tipped the bike over and leaned it side to side. And it just goes to show that, you know, jacking a bike up or not having a jack is not an excuse to get your stuff done. So get with it. Now we just slide it back in there, get the axle shaft lined up. This is where earlier in the video I'd mentioned taking note of your wheel spacings, because that can definitely be a bit of a bear trying to get everything lined up. Another thing that can help is taking your adjustment screws and backing them all the way off. That way you have full play for that. But you get that on there, tighten it all up. I got it as tight as I can go. To be honest with you, I don't know the torque spec on it, but I got it as tight as I could get it, and then I just put a cotter key in there. So and we throw the rear shock back on there, and then we start making our way towards the front. Okay, so we got the rear sprocket installed. now we can go to the front side and get the front sprocket installed. Not sure how much time I'm gonna have left. It is getting pretty dark and getting pretty late, so we're gonna get as far as we can and then regroup tomorrow. See if we can get this off without it rolling too much. Well, remember, righty loosey, lefty tighty on these. So now that we got the belt drive pulley off there, we throw on the chain drive pulley. And the splines can be a little bit of a booger to line up, but you just get them on there and bolt it on just like normal. We're just going to reuse the same nut, and again it is righty loosey, lefty tighty on this one, so left-handed threads will tighten it up, and then we'll break out the torque wrench and get it set exactly how it needs to be. Here we are, torquing it down. I didn't film exactly how I did it, but I had to get a pry bar in there and prevent the sprocket from turning, because I clearly was not strong enough to do that. So we gotta find a way to block that. Doing a chain conversion on it. Nothing wrong with it. Belts are for pants, so. Now we can throw our chain up on there. We wrap it around and get a quick measurement, and I cut the excess off. But on the master link, you always want to make sure the clip itself, the opening of the locking tab, is rear facing. Otherwise you take a risk of that clip popping off under load. So always make sure that that open section is facing backward. And then here's probably the most critical part, is making sure on your tension bolts you tighten them the exact same amount on each side. I didn't have a set of calipers or anything like that with me to mark it, so I backed my bolts out to the exact same position, and then each time I started out going a full turn, or 2 halves on the right and then 2 halves on the left, and then once we got my chain tension a little closer, I did half turns on each side until we got to that. I want to say we did about 1.5 inches of slack, 1 3/8 inches. There you have it, parking lot chain conversion. Absolutely stoked to have this done. I'm definitely ready to take this thing for a rip, see the difference between belt and chain. So that'll probably be it for a little while. I'm gonna enjoy the bike as it is for the season, and then we'll start doing the front forks and whatnot. So thanks again for watching. We'll see you on the next one.